Hello and welcome everybody. We are going to discuss our book today, Mysterious Realities. Now, we released this about 6 months ago, was it? Yeah. But we've compiled a lot of stories and information that we've kind of gathered over the years. And we want to talk about one of the chapters in the book, because I don't think we've really discussed this with you on the channel. And I know a lot of you have seen the Sacred Wisdom podcast, which the incredible Stephen has been discussing a lot of information on. But one of the chapters in the book was called The Spiritual Battles. And it is, as much as people see this world and all the strange things that go on, we are in a spiritual battle. As much as people kind of separate spirituality from this physical reality, we are actually spiritual beings experiencing a physical reality. So in that sense, we kind of want to be aware of the spiritual realms that are around us, these astral realms that lie on different levels, and they are here and very real.
I think what we need to first remember is there has been a very long-term spiritual battle on this planet. It goes back through thousands and thousands of years, goes perhaps back into the antediluvian period before the first great flood, the second great flood. We're looking at a time when, if you look at the Holy Bible, they talk of the time when giants walked the earth. We hear the stories of the Nephilim and the Anakim and the Zamzumin as examples. Now, when it comes to the idea of demonic possession, there are different stages of this process that take place that emanate directly from the 4D holographic reality of the astral plane, where we have obviously the astral universe. If you look at the great work that was done by the Irish American traditionalist Catholic priest, exorcist and Jesuit priest Malachi Brendan Martin,
right.
He wrote a book called Hostage to the Devil on the 1st of January 1976.
Right.
And he goes into contemporary accounts of Americans that were demonically possessed. Okay, so in order to get to that stage, though, that level of extremity, that level of almost insanity, where a demonic entity or a negative spirit from the astral plane can literally get inside the biological and corporeal form of a human being or a Homo sapien, really is not something that can take place immediately. It happens over a long period of time. And there's actually 4 stages until you get to the final stage, which is demonic possession.
How are these demons or spirits or these negative energies, how are they attaching to humans?
So the first stage is known as demonic temptation. Right. So an individual may be susceptible to alcoholic abuse, narcotic abuse, they may be a cocaine addict, a heroin addict, they may have had abuse in their childhood, it could be a woman who's involved in prostitution. There's some level of psychological and emotional vulnerability. So when it comes to demonic temptation, voices are heard in the head. Yeah. So this is known as an intrapsychic projection or an intrapsychic transmission. However, if you look at most people who are psychotherapists or counsellors or psychiatrists, they will say this could be a form of multiple personality disorder, MPD, yeah, which is now known as dissociative identity disorder, or DID.
Right.
Right. Many years ago it was split personality disorder, SPD. So it's gone through a number of acronym changes over the years, and obviously the entire idea of demons or negative entities in the fourth dimension having any influence over the consciousness or thoughts of any human being is just classed as something that's ridiculous, yep, outdated or antiquated. It's a form of superstition and is not relevant. However, so that's the first stage, is demonic temptation, which is now is just dressed up as forms of mental illness and psychiatric disorders.
Yeah.
The next stage after that is demonic infestation.
Yeah.
So
okay. So what happens in infestation?
This is really a telekinetic process. So you can have literally objects moving around.
Yeah.
So
like poltergeist.
A bit like a poltergeist. Which is a noisy ghost. It's not exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of demonic infestation, so objects can smash on the ground, cutlery can be thrown out of a kitchen drawer, an ornament on a mantelpiece is smashed. So that then tends to last for months and months and creates a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety, trauma, and worry in whoever the individual who's perceived as a victim, who isn't a victim, is an unconscious participant in this electromagnetic interaction with the demonic entity or negative spirit, from the fourth dimension or the astral plane.
So it's almost like a shaking of their physical world. So it allows
the material dimension that individual who maybe perceives themselves as a victim and they're actually an unconscious participant, actually probably part of their own soul personality development and learning to go through this process may seem rather extreme, but human beings tend to put themselves through very, very stressful extremes in their lifetimes here on planet Earth. So that then can lead on to demonic oppression. This is obviously the third stage. So that is an energetic attachment to the aura or the astral body of that individual who may perceive themselves as a victim. Now at that point it starts to get a little bit more intensified and extreme. Their thoughts become increasingly malevolent, destructive. They may be involved in violent behaviour towards their own corporeal or biological form or to another human being. It could be a loved one, a relative, a member of the family. And then after that, it tends to sometimes lead on to demonic possession, which is complete consummation of their consciousness by the demon or the negative spirit from the astral plane that literally takes over and actually can create major contortions in their physiology, their muscles.
If these energies wanted to kind of infiltrate humanity, the first places they would go would be to leadership, right?
In terms of, shall we say, rulers and policymakers or elites, the so-called system with a capital S that we live, all within, including the whole financial system, and the whole way that is integrated, facilitated, and consistently rolled out and maintained, it would make sense for those individuals who class themselves as the rulers or policymakers or the elites of that system, inverted commas, to be those that would be focused on for possession. That goes obviously into aspects of Western occultism and Eastern occultism. You can say even witchcraft and ceremonial magic.
And then what's interesting there is obviously what would be the arts that they would go for, and it would be the music industry, which we can clearly see at the moment. We have got
the occult symbolism is very graphic, very discernible, very evident in
very bizarre.
The actual Western music system.
The stuff that we actually saw as kids and that was banned is actually fine now. It seems to be played every day to children and teenagers and all sorts. The pop industry is very twisted.
I mean, you could argue, is the Western world full of so much demonic possession, where millions of people who are in the music industry or the film and television industries, people high up, therefore generally in entertainment and in digital media, is it the case that it's so vast and so commonplace and widespread and they're making huge amounts of money and very successful, as they say, doors open, they get access to networks that ordinary human beings don't get any access to, and they're brought up and integrated into that occult hierarchy. And it's interesting to note that when you look at music, for example, canto pop, which is, very popular in places like Hong Kong and mainland China, it's a very different system. There isn't all the occult symbolism. So it seems to be very focused on the Western world, predominantly parts of Western Europe, the United Kingdom of Great Britain, the Irish Republic, and of course the United States of America and Canada. I'd say specifically in the United States of America more than any other country on planet Earth. And obviously their media is very widespread, very commonplace and very influential, and reaches out in different language translations, obviously with subtitles, to many different countries, including in parts of Latin America and obviously even in parts of Southeast Asia. So we know that if you take it to a logical extreme, is demonic possession now being covertly integrated into the digital technology through those individuals who are musicians, who are film actors and actresses or TV presenters, who therefore have a huge social sway over the minds of the public, who unwittingly are watching these individuals without any knowledge of the fact that they're watching perhaps people who are very powerfully demonically possessed by negative entities from the astral plane.
So they're the 4 stages of possession, right?
So you have demonic, I'd say it starts in this process. So stage 1 is demonic temptation.
And give an example of that. So that would be an addiction, drugs, something like that, getting pulled into that world. Then
that's mainly,
and then the embodiment. So number 2 would be like the embodiment of that.
The telekinetic activity is part of the number 2, which is demonic infestations, as we've explained.
Okay.
So it starts really with your thoughts. Demonic temptation can include things like addiction to pornography, becoming obsessed with the female form to an extreme where it takes over and affects other forms of behaviour in your normal working life or your lifestyle. And it can lead to almost obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, in terms of repeating forms of behaviour that are very progressively self-destructive.
Yes.
So you go from those two then onto the third stage, which is demonic oppression, which is an even bigger increase in intrapsychic projection and transmission, where the consciousness of that individual human being is being taken over.
Yeah.
And obviously then you can go from there into stage 4, which is the finalization, which is complete demonic possession. The eyes change of the individual. They can have extreme bodily contortions. They will be growling, hissing, roaring, screaming, and literally shouting out an endless tirade of obscenities and foul language. And you have to remember that demons or negative entities can read the minds of human beings. And there's many cases, as Malachi Brendan Martin, obviously, who was a Jesuit priest and an exorcist, as I mentioned, in the Roman Catholic Church in the Vatican City State, he encountered so many individuals who would hurl vile abuse at him about very personal, private things in his own life that they would never have been party to, would never have been given any information on, as a form of psychological attack. So we have to remember that when you're dealing with demons or negative entities from the 4D holographic reality of the astral plane, they will always try to mix facts with lies to create inner confusion in inversions within the minds of those who are Jesuit priests and trained exorcists in the Catholic Church, to try and dissuade them from actually releasing the demon or negative entity from the biological or corporeal form of the perceived victim, who isn't obviously a victim.
So the word daemon comes from the Greek language, and it means the denoted spirit, doesn't it? So where it originated from the Greek kind of era?
Yes.
So
well, the actual etymology of the word, daimonos, as you just mentioned, you explained, it does come from the Greek language, and obviously even the word etymology is from the Greek language, interestingly. But so there's a lot of interesting connections back to the classical world, or the classic world of ancient Greece.
Classical Greece, do you think these demons existed?
I mean, you have to understand, in terms of Greek polytheism, so obviously you had the 12 Olympians under Zeus Olympos, the father of the Olympian deities, in the Greek mainland, on Mount Olympus, obviously was the dwelling where they existed. So yes, but in Greek folklore, running in parallel with Greek mythology, were many stories or many accounts of individual, shall we say, Greek citizens who became possessed by demons. It's also interesting to note that the word demon itself, is also from the Greek language. In the etymology, it means provider. So from the word demones, which means provider. So if you actually look at that, the actual demon or negative entity is providing temptation, infestation, oppression, and possession. That in itself is not really something that's fully discerned by most individuals that study this kind of spirituality, or shall we say demonology, for want of a better word.
I think everybody would like to know this, in the sense, obviously demons are looked upon as the opposite of angels. How true is that? Like, they are the negative form, or do demons have any force other than just negativity?
Go back to the Holy Bible and we look at, obviously, the whole Bible story of the fall of Lucifer in the battle of heaven, where the Archangel Michael fought against Lucifer, who went against the infinite oneness and the infinite nowness of the universal creator, and was cast out of heaven. So he took with him angelic legions that followed him out, who then literally, shall we say, electromagnetically, for want of a better word, started to mutate beyond linear space-time and became what we would class as demons. So the very opposite to divine love, infinite oneness and infinite nowness, what they became was malevolence based on division, separateness, deflection, everything that was anti to what represented, the divine principles of the eternal mind of the universal creator. And the universal creator allowed that, needed that to understand itself better through ever more diverse experientiality. Because eventually when...
So the universal creator played the card of the demon to find out more about its own development.
Yes,
yeah, I understand that. That makes sense.
Yeah. So Lucifer was allowed to almost splinter from the divine consciousness of the universal creator, the infinite oneness, the infinite nowness.
Yeah.
Because with that polarization, that beyond space-time, that allowed eventually the creation of the infernal regions of the lower astral. It would be used as a perfect testing ground for the spiritual development of human beings or Homo sapiens, as well as literally billions and billions and trillions of other incarnations within the 3D holographic reality of the material dimension, in other parts of this physical universe and even in alternate universes.
So it was almost like a very harsh physical reality for people to learn in. If they couldn't learn on the physical earth plane, that's where the term comes, sent to hell. There's almost like the lower astral levels are almost like the infernal regions. The subject blows my mind because obviously I've always looked upon Exorcist, the actual film. That has got a lot of relevance, hasn't it? And there was a lot of significance in that film.
I mean, if you look at that film, The Exorcist, you look at the two Catholic priests there. One is obviously trained as a psychiatrist, and the other Catholic priest is trained properly as an exorcist.
Yeah.
And you look at why would a young girl be possessed, and what comes to light in The Exorcist movie is because it's designed by, you can say Satan, and by the way, the word Satan, as you know, is from the Hebrew. Right, so the actual word Satan means the adversary, the opponent, right, and therefore is in opposition to that infinite oneness, that infinite nowness.
But it is still part of that oneness. Exactly. Yes. That's what people need to understand. That's a very important point.
That actually interconnects to a lot of what is known as alien abductions that were taking place, obviously, after the Greada Treaty was signed on the 20th of February 1954 at Merrick Army Airfield, which became known as Edwards Air Force Base in Kern County in Southern California. And from that period in 1954 right up until around the 30th of April, I think it was, 2008, constant abductions by Zeta Reticulum type A grays and Zeta Reticulum type B grays that are classed as a bioetheric embodiment of evil and malevolence, but they are also part of the divine creation that pushes the spiritual development of millions of soul personalities within linear space-time, beyond linear space-time, on planet Earth, this solar system, and throughout much and different expanses on an interstellar level in the physical universe.
So what actually happened? Do you feel that obviously the Greada Treaty was very significant, but was that deliberately done almost? Was there opening up of portals or gateways of some nature that opened up something to allow something in? Well, or it wasn't just a crashed UFO and they went down. Something actually deliberately came to Earth, right? And actually supposedly had this meeting with the President Eisenhower, right?
Yeah, we from all the available information on the Greada Treaty, before the Greada Treaty took place, there had been a previous meet, as I've mentioned before, a number of what's called alien treaties, for want of a better phrase.
So why was the Greada Treaty why was so much attention given to that treaty?
Because it clearly established the exchange of progressive amounts of occult technology, in exchange for abducting millions of American citizens by the Zeta Reticulum type A grays and the Zeta Reticulum type B grays, who act as the biological drones of the Rigelian grays, or shall we say the Orion grays.
It's estimated to be 70 million people, right, that have been abducted, and that is quite a number. No. Even 5 million, even 1 million, even 1,000 people is absolutely a lot of people.
You look at the information regarding the Babylon working that Jack Parsons was involved in, which was to do with opening up. That's right. That was to do with opening up portals from the lower astral to allow, shall we say, demons or negative entities, which were actually more Zeta Reticulum type A grays and Zeta Reticulum type B grays, to come through into this 3D holographic reality of the material dimension. So that was going on at the same time. We have to also remember what Aleister Crowley, with his ceremonial magic, the thelema, magic and the Enochian magic that he was involved in, there's known to be evidentially some strange and very unusual connections to, again, these greys, these bizarre, negatively based bioetheric extraterrestrials.
There's a range of Zeta Reticular beings, isn't there? Because there are some greys that are not meant to be malevolent, and actually they're actually got good intentions, right? And they're little worker bees, if you like.
Yeah, but the ones we stay focused on these ones are completely
there are a dark side
obedient to the Rigelian greys, or known as the Orion greys or tall greys.
Yeah.
So you do have that issue with those. They are very serious in terms of what they're involved in. It's highly problematic, and it's quite malevolent in their behaviour.
So do you think people would actually be aware if they were possessed by these entities?
No. It's a complete electromagnetic consummation of who they are. They don't have any control at that point over their own thoughts, their own consciousness. They are completely, interlocked with the demon or negative entity that can affect them so badly. It actually can cause physiological contortions in their muscles. Obviously, as I've said already, it can cause changes in the tonal patterns of their voices. They make very scary guttural sounds. They start hissing, they could start barking, growling, and then they start spouting out horrendous tirades of obscenities and foul language, because the demon or negative entity has the ability to read the minds of those who are in a localized environment around it, especially if it feels threatened, because they are Jesuit priests that are also, trained Catholic priests and exorcists that are there specifically to remove that demon that has possessed that individual that perceives themselves as a victim, but who's actually a deeply unconscious participant on a soul personality level to that experience.
So what do you think, like when they ascend or they go into the next life, where would they end up? They would end up in a lower astral level, or would they, that person that's possessed, because obviously that can lead to, unfortunately, death, and in situations, suicide, I think probably can, things like this.
Suicide is seen as really ultimately a rejection of the universal creator, because the soul personality in this suicide victim, inverted commas, who isn't a victim, has said that they're literally going to exit this world through consciously making a decision to take their own life. And therefore that's rejecting the entire purpose of coming here to planet Earth, existing here in this very condensed 3D holographic reality of the material dimension, to actually really work through, from maybe a previous incarnation, a lot of different issues that haven't been resolved. And that's very important for them to do so, which means they'll have to come back once again, reincarnate again in the material dimension to carry on doing that. However, other people who have been successfully released from the power and the negative influence of the demon or negative entity actually can, at the point of death, they may decide they want to experience spiritual ascension. They may not want their soul personality to reincarnate again in the 3D holographic reality, the material dimension. They may decide they want to exist in the astral plane for what we may term thousands of years, aeons of time, or they may want to reincarnate in a more spiritually based, advanced bioetheric extraterrestrial civilization somewhere in the physical universe.
Thank you, Stephen. That was absolutely incredible, as always. And you do such a good way at articulating that information and putting it across in a simple format so people can understand. Because this is complex, there's a lot of complexities to it. And there is no doubt that we are in a spiritual battle. A lot of people seem to forget, like I said at the beginning, we are spiritual beings experiencing this physical reality. So understand there's going to be other levels to that, and other forms and other life forms in all different levels. So, really understand yourself. And another point is really don't be aware of the addictions and what you're putting into your body, because there are a lot of substances in this world that seem to bring these fields down in the human body. And we don't want to lower the energy of the human body. We want it to keep strong and always be coming from our heart. This is really important, especially in these times. But you can also purchase our book, Mysterious Realities, which is available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. You can also download from my website. And thank you, Stephen. And it's bye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.